We're finally live on YouTube. Every week we like to go live. And if you're watching on any of the other platforms that we're streaming on right now, you can find us over on YouTube at our same name as it is on TikTok and other platforms. Two Guys Take on Real Estate. Thank you so much if you're watching us live right now. And if you're not watching us live and you're watching this on Restream, thanks for making it to our channel. We really appreciate it. We're going to ask repeatedly that you drop some likes on this broadcast and all of our content on YouTube so more and more people are able to find it. I'm going to set up the chat, so I'm going to be able to answer questions and comments on our YouTube Live from people that are here as we broadcast this. But today, we're going to be talking about screening tenants. Wow. I hope you guys have been watching and loving some of our content so far. One of the biggest things I can tell you about when it comes to real estate is people are so worried about getting involved and getting going in real estate because they're worried about having bad tenants and how that'll affect them. So that's what we want to talk about today. We want to help you guys avoid some of the situations that you could end up in, which we've ended up in a lot of times by learning a little bit more about some different methods to screen tenants. I always try to tell people the eviction process starts with the application. And it's a little bit of dark humor there, but the idea is it'll help you later on down the road if you get into a bad situation with some bad people. It'll help you sort those things out. But most importantly, the best way to get a bad tenant out of your life is to not have them in it to begin with. Lisa's already there on our YouTube Live. Thanks everybody for joining in on YouTube. For those of you that are still on the TikTok live stream, you can find us and ask questions and comments over on YouTube Live. Two Guys Take on Real Estate. And Lisa says, lovely topic. My ex-tenant is threatening to sue over the deposit. Absolutely. They always do that kind of stuff. It's a great way to make sure you can avoid those kind of things is to not deal with these people in the first place. But we have a lot of great strategies and educational content here on our YouTube channel about how to put yourself in a good position of strength when you have somebody making basically a baseless claim against you. So much that happens very, very often. We're going to talk more about it. Today, we're talking about tenant screening, how to screen tenants, and some of your best practices to do that. Obviously, everybody's business is going to be a little bit different. Your properties are going to be different than my properties. You may have a huge mix of different types of properties so that you never know whose process might be the best. My process, definitely not going to be the best for the rest of you guys out there. So I want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to help tailor a process for you that's right for you and your process. Bottom line is, if you don't have a lot of rental property, this might be something incredibly critical. Think about it this way. If you've got 100 apartments, right? Nobody's got 100 apartments on this broadcast, right? If you've got 100 apartments and you have one vacancy or one bad tenant, that's only 1/100th of your holdings. Not a big deal. But if you have two apartments and you let a bad tenant in, that's 50% of your portfolio, of your holdings that are in really rough shape. So these things are really critical to learn and adapt, and you can always change your process. So let's talk about it. Let's jump in a little bit more. Again, live streaming right now, taking questions over on YouTube Live. Hey, Kevin, we're hoping to get our first rental soon, so this is just what I needed to hear. Thanks, Rob. Glad that you're here on the broadcast on YouTube. We're going to be talking about how you can put together a process that's right for you and make sure you're making sure you only have good tenants moving in. And I always talk about this. Matt put this slide on here for me, found this awesome image. The best way to deal with bad tenants, never let them move in. And I love the fact that the DOT is giving the bird's nest an eviction notice. Poor bird, probably didn't do anything wrong. Just living his life in a tree. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how to get going with a checklist of things you can do to screen your tenants. For those of you on TikTok, please switch over to YouTube. You can find us. It's Two Guys Take on Real Estate, and you can jump in and ask some questions over there as well. And Rob, who's buying his first rental right now, is obviously tuned in right now because he's getting started finally in real estate, and he's been watching our channel for a while. He wants to learn more about this tenant screening checklist. Here's some things you can use to screen your tenants. You can screen with credit scores, making sure people have a certain type of credit, 500, 600, 800, could be whatever you decide. Rental experience. What do they have for rental? Do they have a rental history for 2 years? You can decide what will qualify for your apartments and your rentals. References. What kind of references? Sorry, I'm getting a lot of calls here. What kind of references are you going to require from your prospective tenants? Maybe none, maybe no references, maybe a lot of references. You're going to be very, very meticulous in making sure you have only the best tenants moving in. And again, for those of you just joining on, if you're here on our TikTok channel, welcome. But we're taking questions and everything from the folks on our YouTube live stream. So you can find us on YouTube live at Two Guys Take on Real Estate. Same name as it is right here on TikTok. And we'll be taking your questions and comments right over there too. Where do you go to check their credit? That's a great question. We're going to get to that in just a second. I'm going to put it on the screen for you. Income requirements. You can actually set income requirements for your properties. You can say, listen, if you don't have X amount of dollars coming into the household every day, we're not going to rent you. We're not going to approve you. You can absolutely do that. In eviction history, are you going to want to rent to somebody that's been evicted? Are you going to want to rent to somebody that's being evicted? We'll talk more about that as we move on through these slides. If you think this stuff is interesting, maybe you have some other things you can add that other landlords could use. Maybe there's something I forgot on this list. Drop me a comment on our YouTube live. We'll be really appreciative of it. You'll be helping other people learn as well. And again, I've had thousands and thousands of tenants. Way too many, thousands of tenants. Some of them were good though. And so I've learned a lot about this stuff, but my process has evolved, changed so much over the years that now most of my staff is doing it. And I don't even know exactly some of the stuff that we're currently doing, but I can tell you the ups and downs, all the different ways that you can use these types of categories. Credit scores. Let's talk a little bit about credit scores when it comes to approving people to rent your apartment. And this, everybody's going to have different styles of rentals. You might live in a college town and you're going to have probably a lot of college students applying. You might live, in a very, or have these properties in a very upscale area. You may have properties in a very not so upscale area. I've got a lot of experience with the more challenging areas. I'm going to talk to you. I can share my experience to you about that. If you're watching the latest video we just had on TikTok about literally doing drive-bys, having drive-bys happening at my property where my house has bullet holes in it. Every week, a new bullet hole. Do you really think I'm worried about credit scores for the people that are going to choose to rent maybe on that street? No. So for me, it's not that important. How important are credit scores to you? That's what you should be deciding. Now, checking credit will cost you money. And you had a great question. Where do you go to check their credit? There's actually, just do a Google search. There's tons of different places to go. There's property management software that you can also utilize that will help you check their credit as well. So you can actually run credit checks right through most basic property management software, or you can use independent stuff that you can get through Google. Now, the important part of it is one thing, it's going to cost you money. Now, a lot of people out there, you've probably rented, I've rented for many, many years. And folks, if you're on TikTok and you're still watching over there, we're taking questions and comments over on our YouTube Live. So please find us on YouTube Live at Two Guys Take on Real Estate. And for those that aren't catching us live and you're watching on Restream or watching a rebroadcast of this, please drop a comment on here. We do watch our comments all the time on YouTube. If you've ever applied for an apartment, checking credit costs the landlord money to screen. So you know what? Have anybody heard of application fees? Application fees, at least where I live, in our states where most of our properties are, we don't have the ability to charge a tenant an application fee. So if somebody's looking to apply for our property and they, we have to run a credit check and all this stuff, it might cost us $30 to $50 to run an application for somebody. Our time, the cost of the application and the credit check. So we would say, listen, there's an application fee of $50 if you're interested in renting this apartment. We can't do that. That's actually not something a landlord in our area, in our state, is allowed to do. I don't know if you have that same issue in your state. Have you ever paid an application fee when you were looking to rent an apartment? I'd love to hear about it. Find us on YouTube and drop a comment. But in our area, landlords cannot charge an application fee. So if you are buying your first property, Rob, I know over on our YouTube live stream, he's watching. He's buying his first rental property. If you want to make sure somebody has a great credit score to move in, you have to make sure that you don't charge them in your area. Make sure you look up the rules. Make sure you're not violating a law where you're not charging to pass that fee along. It's a very common practice that a lot of people do, and it might go against the local laws. Must apply consistently to all applicants. Guys, I cannot tell you enough how important anything, and for those of you just joining in, this is what I'm going to go right back to the very first slide, how important your screening tenants process must be consistently applied to everyone. The quickest way for you to catch a discrimination claim against you is to do something for one person that's applying, and that's different than another person that's applying. Because when somebody feels that they've been mistreated, however fairly or not you treated them, if they feel that they're mistreated, they can file a discrimination claim under any of a zillion protected class type of things. So imagine if you had a process that you went through for everybody, and then somebody, applied and you didn't like the look of them, or you didn't like their race or their religion or whatever these things are, and so you didn't apply the same process. You said, oh, you know what? I don't approve your credit. Your credit's not good enough. Where you were approving other people whose credit was actually higher than them, they could turn around and say, wow, you didn't approve me. Because you didn't treat me the same. You discriminated against me because of my race or ethnicity or my religion, or because I'm handicapped. I don't know. There's a bunch of different things that they could come up with as a reason if you don't apply your practice consistently. So whatever your practice is, make sure you're evaluating it for yourself, making sure it makes the most sense for your business, and then make sure you consistently apply it to all applicants. Treat everybody the same. It's a huge thing. And if you make a mistake, even when you think you're not hurting anybody, changing your practice up and not applying it consistently to everybody applying could land you in a lot of trouble. Sorry, I see a whole bunch of these comments here on YouTube. I'm trying to keep up. Love when they say they never rented and their references are family member. Yes, we see that a lot. I'm going to talk about that, I'm sure. That's not discrimination. Well, we actually just talked about discrimination. I know I'm a little behind on some of these YouTube comments. And by the way, folks, if you are watching this on TikTok or on any of our other platforms, please find us over on our YouTube Live. We have a huge amount of comments and questions that come in there. We're doing our best to answer them over there. And if you're watching this on a rebroadcast on our YouTube, thank you for checking us out. Drop a like and then drop a comment, and we'll get to it as well. So there are ways to do credit checks, but most of them are going to cost you. Just so you know, you cannot pass that cost on. In some states, there are a workaround type of thing. Like if you're using a real estate agent to pull the credit, a real estate agent is basically doing a tenant service of matching a tenant and a landlord up. They can usually charge to cover those fees, but the landlord can't in many areas. Again, always make sure you're reviewing your local laws. Any questions? Should we have on the application that most people don't think about? Actually, here's a great one, Rob. Stick around, hang on for this one. Here's a question that I thought was kind of a novelty that a lot of landlords in my area, liked, and they put on their application. I swear to God, seriously, freak out in the comments if you tell me this is stupid or why somebody might do this. They ask on their application, what brand of vacuum cleaner do you own? What brand of vacuum cleaner do you own? So they've got questions on their application like, previous landlord, current landlord, household income, what brand of vacuum do you own? And they go right down the list into other questions. But has anybody ever seen an application with that? Why do you think some landlords might have that on their application? I'd love to hear your guesses and your thoughts about that. What brand of vacuum do you own? That's a question often found on rental applications, at least in my circle. And I would love to hear what people think about that question. Oregon, lawyer said not to charge, even though it's legal, because given more leeway not to rent more arbitrarily. Yep, I got you. And yes, we are. Most of our properties can be located in Mass. Mass is very restrictive when it comes to this stuff. I want to move along. Victoria, she hit the nail on the head. I don't know if anybody from our TikTok people got it or not to see the quality of the renter. I would say it definitely helps you evaluate that. Sure. And to keep ice away. To know if they even own a freaking vacuum. Are these people cleaning? If you don't own a vacuum, are you maybe a dirty tenant? Sanitation is one of the biggest problems a landlord can have with a tenant. We have it a lot. So it's a great question that a lot of landlords put on their application with a little bit of psychology behind it. But to make sure they'll own one, and we'll be able to take care of the carpet. That's exactly right. We don't do carpet in most of our properties anyway, because we know how that turns out. Rental experience. Here's another credibility thing you could be asking about in terms of part of your screening. Everybody's going to have a different screening process. Rental experience is something people are going to often require. So let's talk about that. It could help avoid newbie renters and their challenges. Man, let me tell you, newbie renters and their challenges, do you know what they mean by that? A lot of people that are new to renting their first apartment, they're finally moving out of mom and dad's house and getting their first place. They have no idea what their responsibilities are, and they don't know how to handle some basic, very, very simple issues. They sometimes freak out about small problems, and they make them this big, dramatic event. And a lot of landlords don't want to have to deal with babysitting brand new tenants. So a lot of landlords will say, listen, I want to know this person has been renting for a while. I want to know they know how to run a household, that they know how to manage their money, that they're successful in doing this before I let them move into my home. So that's why a lot of people have a requirement of some a year, 2 year, 5 years rental experience. You can select whatever you like. And remember, you have to apply these things consistently to everybody. So if you have a good candidate and you really, really like them, you think they're going to be an awesome tenant for you, and they don't have any rental experience, and you said no to some other people because they didn't have rental experience, you could be discriminating, and you could have a claim quickly hit against you. You never might know about this kind of stuff. It could limit the pool of prospective tenants. Guys, if you're going to require rental experience, you're going to be cutting down your pool of prospective tenants quite a bit. Remember, a lot of people are going to start renting. They're going to move out of mom and dad's house. They're going to look for an apartment. Maybe they're going to college. They need an apartment. They don't have 2 years of rental experience. They're not going to qualify for your stuff. You're going to be limiting your possible tenant pool to a very small amount of people. That's fine. You might be cool with that. I don't know. Remember, this is so you can tailor your practices. I just try to give you some of the ups and downs and some of the things you can use. It may be difficult to verify. When somebody says, yeah, I've been renting for 2 or 3 years, and you're like, cool, how do I know that, right? Then they're like, well, I rented from this person, and that person is deceased, or they moved out of the state, and they went to, they retired. They might be hard to get a hold of. You have no way to necessarily verify some of this stuff unless the tenant was really organized and was able to provide verification with their application. Those may be some great tenants. But otherwise, rental experience sometimes could be hard to know for sure if they have it or not. Let me know what you guys think about that. Who are you laughing at? I'm assuming Matt is on. I'm assuming he's talking to Lisa. What about getting parents to co-sign? And Matt, great point of view. We can always look at having co-signers as part of a rental. So if you're working with students, maybe people just starting off, that's a great thing that a lot of people look to do is doing co-signers. So that'll open up some of your previous tenants, that applicants that you might have declined, and it gives you some more leeway to approve more people. It also gives you some more coverage when things don't go that great. You have maybe some more recourse against people. So I love the laughs. Thanks very much for being on our YouTube channel. Anybody have any comments? Please find us over on YouTube. It's Two Guys Take on Real Estate, the same as it is on TikTok and Instagram. And you can find us and join in the comments and questions over on our YouTube live stream right now. Question from TikTok. Oh, I got one right here. Well, thanks, Victoria, for relaying a question from TikTok. TikTok people, you have YouTube. It costs nothing. Find us over here. Jump into live stream and say hello. Question from TikTok. Is it legal to communicate with applicants' previous landlords? Let's talk about that. References, landlords. So, yeah, there you go. I love it. That's a great question. Somebody out there is freaking psychic. I love it when people are right on the same page. You might, as a new landlord and as somebody looking for a tenant, have this part of your screening process to check references, check previous landlord references. Now, that's similar to rental experience, right? You're verifying that they've been doing some rental. Who are you calling? Who are you checking, right? You're calling their current landlords, their previous landlords. When you call their current landlords, do you trust that reference? I don't bother calling their current landlords most of the time. Why do you think when I screen my tenant, I don't bother calling their current landlord? Can anybody tell me why they might think that might be the case? Let me know. Hit me up in the comments. Drop me a comment here on YouTube. And if you're restreaming this and watching this, jump in with some comments. We're going to be checking these even going forward. You don't have to be live to have been able to ask questions or interact with this. Why don't I bother checking current landlords of tenants that apply with me? And while we're thinking about that, I want to get some answers in. So come on, guys, jump in with your comments on that. Lisa had a great question. How do you prove discrimination when you just choose the more suitable tenant? It's not necessarily about proving, it's about the accusation. Don't get yourself jammed up with a ridiculous, frivolous accusation because you have to jump through a ton of hoops to prove yourself innocent or defend your decisions. So just the accusation drives you nuts and costs you money and time. So don't do anything that's going to give people more reason to want to file a claim against you. The claim itself, especially when they're frivolous, is basically almost can be retaliatory. It can be just basically abusive. They didn't get their way. They're grumpy and unhappy. They decide to take it on you, but making a ridiculous claim. Now, on top of that, sometimes they're making a valid claim, right? So, you don't want to do something wrong and then get caught and called out on it and really, extensively punished. But you do want to make sure that if you did something wrong, you learn from it and you adapt so you're not doing the wrong thing going forward. So there is a fine line there. But past the trash, and they want them out, they're willing to lie. That's exactly right. I love the comments. Thank you, YouTube live streamers. Victoria, and I think it was the other one, Rob. Absolutely. If you're going to do landlord references, if you're going to check to see how your prospective tenant's going to be, and you contact their current landlord, who knows, right? They're going to be like, oh, yeah, Joan, yeah, she's moving out. Oh, I hate to hear that. She was my best tenant ever. Boy, she was, oh my, I'm going to miss her. I wish her all the best. Boy, I hope you treat her right and get her moved in right away because she's great. I mean, they're going to say whatever they need to say to get that horrible tenant the hell out of their property. So if you think that that's a good possibility, and believe me, it is. I've had that happen a number of times to me, and I've taken in their garbage, right? Because they lied to me, because they wanted that tenant out, and they were willing to sell out another landlord, another business owner and colleague to get that person out of their life. If you know that when you make that call that there's a good chance that what they're saying can't be trusted, why bother checking? If you're not going to trust the source, why bother asking the source in the first place? Don't waste your time if you can't trust a current landlord. The gold mine is getting a hold of a previous landlord, the guy that did get him out. Now, he might have said something, he might have lied, he might have done everything the current landlord might be willing to do. But at this point, that person is gone from them. They have no reason to mislead you, or certainly less reason to mislead you. Talk to the previous landlords. That's the gold mine. If you can get a hold of them, if they had one, and those are the ones you want to be talking to. Yep. Because they lie and it's their cousin. Boy, we get that a lot too. They put their current landlord. We all know that trick, right? They put their freaking cousin down and they're sitting right next to them when they get that phone call from you. So, how was Joan? Was she a good tenant? Oh yeah, she was sure she was good. Tell him I was always on time with my rent. Yeah, she said she's always on time with her rent. I mean, this seriously. They don't think this stuff out that well. I've literally had tenants put down their mom as their current landlord, and then the mom was like, "What? No, that's my daughter. That's not my." Oh, yeah, no, she lived here, And they just completely train wreck this stuff. So don't trust the current tenant landlords. Trust more in the previous landlords. If part of your screening process to prevent bad tenants is to have landlord references. And for those of you that are here still on TikTok, say hello. I appreciate the comments and everything in there, but I can't really see them. I'm kind of a ways away. The best way to comment and engage in this is to join us like everybody else is doing on our YouTube live stream at Two Guys Take on Real Estate. How much there it is. A previous landlord tell you without having liability against them? You know what? That's a great question. I would stick to factual and provable stuff if you're the one giving the reference out. So I'm pretty blunt about this stuff. People get from me the reference they deserve. I will tell you, when I'm the current landlord and I have the most horrible of bad tenants, and I can't wait to get these people out of my life and my good tenants' neighboring lives, I will always tell the truth because I will not throw somebody else into jeopardy, another landlord into jeopardy that maybe owns two properties, and those properties are now going to be full or half occupied by a horrible bad tenant. I always tell the truth. Current landlords don't often do that, but I give tenants the reference they deserve. I'm pretty blunt about stuff, and you can judge a lot. Let me tell you, you can judge a lot by tone. So doing stuff in writing and then having a verbal conversation with a landlord will tell you a lot as well. So some of the important questions you're going to have are factual questions, though. So did the tenant pay their rent? Did they leave owing any money? Did they keep their house, clean and orderly? Did they follow the lease? Did they have any significant lease violations? Answer those questions, and you can answer those things factually. No, they left trash everywhere. I've got pictures. Yeah, they paid the rent, but it was never on time. It took took me 4 different attempts each month to get them to send us the check. Whatever it might be, you can tell them factual stuff, but you're going to get a lot of it in the tone as well. So if you can verify the stuff verbally, that will help you, but always try to get a backup verification as well in writing so that when you turn a prospective tenant down because of it, you can turn around and say, listen, according to my your last landlord, they had collection issues, payment issues, lease violation issues. So we're not looking to go forward at this time. Thank you. All right, so let me get to the next one here for you guys. And thanks if you're just joining in from TikTok. What's up? Say hello to everybody on TikTok. I appreciate it. You can follow us over on YouTube and jump into our YouTube Live where people are asking questions and making comments about how to screen tenants. And our YouTube is Two Guys Take on Real Estate. Please, if you're on our YouTube Live, make sure you drop a like on this video and some of our other content. This stuff is all free. We make this content for you. Take a second out of your life and help us out by growing our channel. Income requirements. Here's a great way that you can make sure you're moving in a good qualified applicant. And you might really want to consider having income requirements be a huge part of your screening process. So this is one of the biggest parts of ours. We don't take credit checks and credit scores into account that much. One, we don't want to have to pay for credit checks because it gets very expensive. But two, a lot of our property is in awfully kind of tougher neighborhoods, less desirable perhaps areas where people that often will apply for these properties don't have great credit. So I'm not going to see the need to set a minimum credit standard of like 700 to give somebody an apartment. Most people that have 700 are going to live in the nicer, further away neighborhoods outside of the city, that kind of a thing. So credit score might not make sense for you, but income requirements might. Just because somebody has bad credit doesn't mean they're not going to be a reliable payer. They may not have built up their credit. They may have made mistakes in the past and have learned from them and are getting themselves back on track. But making sure they're not making a bad call. And I've had people apply for a $1,000 a month apartment, but their income is $1,200 a month. I don't know what they're doing wrong where their income is only $1,200 a month, but that's not really for me to say. What is for me to say is, based on experience, I know if your income is $1,200 and your rent is $1,000, the first thing it's going to happen is your tenancy is going to end in a train wreck because you're probably not going to have enough money to pay for a whole bunch of other life expenses and also pay for rent. So given eviction laws and given how quick people are to screw over their landlord, but yet still pay their car payment, my guess is I'm going to be the one getting shorted. So I'm not going to let that tenant put me in a bad situation by putting themselves into a bad situation because they're not responsible with evaluating their spending. So what I would suggest doing is set a minimum income requirement for applicants. And a good rule of thumb, we use this quite a bit too. A good rule of thumb is income must be 3 times the monthly rent. So if that rent is $1,000 a month, their income requirement for that apartment should be at least $3,000 a month. So think about it. If a 2-bedroom apartment is $1,000 a month, income must be at least $3,000 a month. A 2-bedroom apartment that's with $3,000 a month minimum income should be very doable for most people. 2 adults, maybe a husband and wife, and then a kid in one of the other bedrooms. 2 able-bodied adults putting together $3,000 a month, not all that challenging usually. You should have a pretty good income requirement here where I think you keep a decent tenant pool open. However, it's only a third of their income. So, I mean, that means they have $2,000 each month left over that can go towards, food and other essentials on top of their shelter. So you should be in a pretty good, safe place for them, helping them make a wise decision and probably going to get paid. Now, a couple of other things. Income must not be limited to earned income. So don't forget, not everybody's income is because they get up every day and go to work. Some people don't work. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't work. Some people have income from various other sources like rental subsidies, any type of government funding type stuff, welfare money, social security, disability, all those different types of sources. We actually had a tenant. We had a 5-bedroom apartment, really nice side-by-side duplex. And we had a single mother with 5 children. Each child, she was able to get registered as disability. So each child collected, the money gets sent to the mom, a disability check every single month for about $800. So 5 kids, $800 each. That's $4,000 a month of guaranteed income from the state. She didn't have any earned income. That was what she did, is she stayed home and had kids. And she basically had $4,000 a month income. So she easily met the income requirements. She didn't have any earned income. So don't forget, usually in most states, you can't discriminate against income being limited to earned income. A lot of people out there don't work and maybe never will. So you can't say, no. You have to have a job. So if you're putting a listing together and say, listen, you have to have a job that pays or anything like that in your apartment listing, that right there could be discriminatory and you could end up in a huge problem with it. Now, don't forget subsidized tenants. A lot of tenants live on, it's called Section 8 or some kind of government subsidy. In our area, those tenants actually have a voucher. So the property itself isn't zoned or a Section 8 property. The tenant themselves is a Section 8 tenant with a voucher. And that voucher says that basically they can rent any 3-bedroom apartment wherever they want to go, as long as it's in whatever pricing guidelines. They can't get a 3-bedroom penthouse, on a skyscraper in New York City, for instance, but if they can pay market value for a 3-bedroom apartment. So you don't have to worry about their income because the government, the Section 8, people will essentially make the tenant pay only a portion of their rent that's less than 30% of their income. And again, these things are probably different by different places. Didn't you guys have a tenant that moved in and only paid 1 month of rent and then quit paying? We've had dozens and dozens of tenants that have done exactly that. But again, that's why you need a process to undo the tenancy in an eviction process to straighten that out. In our case, we also work a lot with rental assistance programs. So if the reason the tenant is not paying is because of some kind of financial hardship, or in our case, in our area, just the claim of financial hardship, we'll basically get a ton of rental assistance money to help cover their expenses. But they were fully capable. They had an income. They proved the income with pay stubs. I think they actually had jobs. All this money was there every month. They could afford this place. They moved in. They chose to not pay rent after that. So you can't force a tenant to pay if they have income, but you can at least hedge your bets by making sure they have legitimate income moving forward. And that's really easy to do. You can make them itemize it right on a rental application. Very, very important stuff. So income requirements as part of your tenant screening process. I can't stress this enough. It will help people avoid making a bad decision. I've had a lot of people that have applied and they're more than willing to take on an apartment that, in my experience, I know they can't afford. I know will end in disaster. It's going to end up with them losing their apartment. But more importantly for me and my business and my staff and my bills is I know I'm going to lose a ton of money on this. So if my experience shows me that they can't afford this place, why in the world would I want to let them go forward with it? So, you don't have to have these experiences. You can learn from other people that do have them and share them, like us right here on YouTube at Two Guys Take on Real Estate. Eviction history, that's another great criteria that can help you decide if you want to rent to a tenant or not. So screen your tenants by taking into account their eviction history. Different areas, different types of tenants. You're going to have all sorts of different types of backgrounds. Eviction history around here is something that a lot of people have a history of. We actually adapted some of our policy to be like, we won't work with you if you have a recent eviction within the last 5 years. That's how often many, many people do get evicted. So we have maybe a different market than what you might have for your properties. That's why you want to set up your process to be something that makes sense for you and your properties. But check if an applicant has been previously evicted or is in the process of being evicted. Can I tell you, I don't know how many times people have applied to live in one of my properties that are literally being kicked out by somebody else. Eviction is a process, so it doesn't happen overnight. But as soon as they know they're going to get the heave-ho from their current landlord, they start dropping applications every single place. A lot of these people are going to mislead and not be open and honest about the situation that they have going on. But if a landlord's kicking them out, it's because the landlord usually has exhausted every other option possible to resolve the situation that they have, and the tenant is not going along with it and not working with the landlord or being reasonable. So the landlord is putting it into the court and appealing to a reasonable third-party person, a judge, to end that tenancy and get them out, whatever it might be. It could be for cause. Maybe they have lease violations that are so significant the landlord can't deal with it. Maybe they're not paying for the property and they're basically just stealing services from the landlord. So if that's the case, do you really want to take in somebody that is currently going through that or has somewhat recently gone through that or ever gone through that? You might say, wow, I don't need to deal with that. I have 100 other people that would love this place and don't have any eviction history, even if it was 5 or 10 years ago. Sorry, I see more comments coming in. Thanks, Victoria. Do you think a late fee penalty motivates people to pay their rent on time? It's a great question, and that will help prevent some evictions. You would think, unfortunately, state by state, all states are different, but in some states like ours, we can't charge we charge $50 late fee until the rent's more than 30 days late. Now, if I'm more than 30 days late on my credit card, I get whacked with a huge late fee and penalties. If I'm more than 30 days late on my mortgage, I get whacked with a huge issue and penalties and phone calls and red letters in the mail. Right, late on your taxes, you get all sorts of stuff. But more than 30 days late, and then it's a slap on the wrist. The rent's $1,500, and you can only assess a $50 late fee. It's like it's like people paying the parking tickets. They're like, listen, it's just basically, I'll just pay the ticket and have an awesome parking spot. I can afford it, or it's worth it for the convenience of not having to follow the rules. So late fees, you have to make sure if you're going to assess them, you have to make sure you're following your local laws on that. But you can check eviction history, usually pretty much free via courts. This stuff's all freedom of information. You should definitely know in your area how to see if a tenant has been has been evicted or has any court activity. You should definitely put that on your rental applications. If you're going to be looking into eviction history, have you ever been in a legal proceeding related to your housing? Have you ever been evicted? These are two separate questions that should definitely and can be included on your rental applications. You could establish a time limit from the last eviction. Like I said, maybe you're okay with the understanding that people that made mistakes a while back have changed, turned over a new leaf, and aren't going to do the same thing to you. Maybe you don't have that kind of leeway, or maybe you don't have property in a super desirable area, so you're going to have to deal with the fact that having to lower your standards a little bit. Review court vacate agreements. My God! So everybody's court system is a little bit different. We have a challenging, but I love the court system we have here because again, a landlord's intention to do an eviction should never be to do an eviction. You want to do everything you can to avoid having to evict a tenant. Most importantly, coaching the tenant and getting them back on track. So when I go to court for a tenant for a cause issue, but usually for a non-payment issue, what I'm trying to do is get the tenancy back on track. And if I see that they can't, I'm trying to help them vacate in a way where it damages me as little as possible. So I'll create an agreement. And our court system may be a little bit unique, but we have a great court system where they actually will sit down with a mediator and they'll help you. I mean, I'm pretty good at it. I don't use mediators that much anymore, but or really ever. But I can create an agreement that says, listen, you'll pay your current rent going forward plus $100 towards your arrears, till you get caught up and get back on track. Or if it's not a recoverable situation, I'll say, listen, if you need some more time before you move, that's fine. You have to pay me for the time, and then we'll move, and I won't have a judgment going against you and have an eviction hit your history. So at least we can do the right thing and part ways, at least in a somewhat fair manner. So those vacate agreements will go right into their court file. A lot of that stuff's available electronically. You can see it right online, usually for free, or you can contact your local court and see if you can pull it from their file and review it. If there's a neutral reference as part of a court case, that's a huge red flag. I hate doing these. I almost never do them because, remember, we talked about landlord references. I want to give people the landlord reference that they've earned. Look, if they earned, what they hear, what I state about them, especially if it's factual, right? A neutral reference is often a condition. And this is really, really important, so stick around. This is often a condition that might get worked into a court vacate agreement or a judgment or any kind of resolution that didn't go in front of a judge at a court case for eviction or to move a tenant out. A neutral reference is basically put into an agreement, usually from the tenant's end of things, that says the landlord, the former landlord, agrees to give a neutral reference. In other words, won't say any bad stuff about this tenant that might hurt them getting housed in the future. So if I call and contact a previous landlord and they signed an agreement that states the references they're going to give out are neutral, and I get a neutral reference, I know that there's more to that story. So if you're savvy, that's one of the big takeaways today. If you're really savvy about this stuff, a neutral reference should be a huge red flag, and you should explore more about that application. It could be nothing. It could be pretty significant. But 90% of the time, 99% of the time, if there's somebody that's telling me, oh yes, all I can really tell you is that they rented from this date to this date and they left not owing any money, so my reference is neutral. As soon as I hear that it's neutral, I'm digging for court information about it. I'm looking for agreements, and I'm looking to find out what happened. Usually what happens is, 90% of the time, the landlord agreed to give a neutral reference. They just said, just get out. I know you owe me $5,000. I'm never going to get it from you. Just get out of my apartment tomorrow. Let me stop the bleeding. Let me move on to a better household, and I'll give you a neutral reference. So that's what ends up happening 99% of the time. If you're savvy about this stuff, you're going to know more about it. So definitely, that's a great one to look at. All right, so I'm going to go back to the front here and go over a couple of these things because I do want to get some comments and questions from you guys. For those of you that haven't found us on our YouTube channel, find us on YouTube. It's completely free. We do comments and questions with our YouTube viewers. And the YouTube name is the same as it is on TikTok. It's Two Guys Take on Real Estate. If a landlord is taking a tenant to court to evict them, can't you look up that in public records in the courts? Hope that makes sense. Yes, of course, Ed. And we just talked about that. So you're absolutely right. I'm sorry I'm a little behind on that comment. But it's very, very powerful what you can do for tenant screening to protect your assets, to make sure you're moving in, hopefully a household that's going to be productive and treat you fairly. Now, remember, as a landlord, you have a lot of responsibilities. You have to do the right thing and provide an excellent service for your customer. But this part of it is about making sure that you're exercising your rights to make sure you have a good performing tenant going forward. So I really, really hope everything goes well for you guys in your pursuit of this kind of stuff. If you haven't liked our video already, please take a second and like this broadcast. Take a moment on our YouTube channel. We have so much content that doesn't fit on YouTube, on TikTok, or it doesn't fit on Instagram. So you can only do 30-second clips over there and answer tiny little questions with small little sentences. We do a lot more on our YouTube channel. All this stuff is free. We review the comments and we try to create more content based on our users' questions. So please take a moment, if you haven't already, find us there, subscribe and ring the notifications bell, because we have a great video coming up that I don't want you guys to miss. Matt actually, we took over a property from foreclosure. Matt brought his camera along for the first time of us going in and seeing this property after we bought it. So we go to these auctions, we buy sometimes property without seeing the inside, and we actually brought a camera along so you get to see Matt's reaction in real time to exactly what was going on inside this property. I don't want you guys to miss that. So when you subscribe to our YouTube channel, make sure you ring the notifications bell so it pops up. We also do some fun polls and stuff like that and update you when we're going to go live. So if you ring the notifications bell, you won't miss these videos. And if you're catching us on a rebroadcast or a restream of this, thanks for being here. But you can always find out about this stuff by watching us live. I'm going to pop over here, check out some of these real quick for us. Didn't you have a tenant that moved out? Oh, yep. Sorry, went back. How many units do you have? So I know when you say things have happened dozens of times. I've had thousands of tenants. We had up to 500, a little over 500 units at one point, altogether at one point. We've lowered that a little bit as we got into more things like flipping, wholesaling. So I have a wide range of experience, but I've had thousands of tenants. I I go to housing court, or I drive down the street and I recognize people that work at the court. I see the judges out shopping at Home Depot. They wave. I mean, I spend a lot of time working on all sorts of tenant related stuff and real estate stuff that deals with tenants. So I'm always happy to be a good resource for you guys. The real key to being a good landlord is to be very reasonable and fair and treat people, firmly but professionally, and making sure you set expectations and keep good communication open with your tenants so that you tell them exactly what you expect out of them. You tell them exactly what they can expect out of you before you start your tenancy, so you guys have a good relationship of mutual respect, and hopefully it all succeeds pretty well, but it doesn't always. How do you deal with squatters? Oh my God, let me tell you, I deal with squatters quite a bit now. So if you haven't seen some of the videos or some of the live streams we've done about squatters, please stick around our channel. You're going to see a lot more of the squatter content coming along. There is some squatter content on our YouTube already. So take a second, browse through our YouTube, drop us a couple likes and some comments. Let us know more about it. Oh yeah, you said dozens in relation to how many people have paid first. Oh my God, yeah, we've had, oh yeah, boy. I've dealt with everything. So like I said, we started doing this stuff. And if you're familiar with our YouTube channel, we talk about how we get started, what we did and how we began this business and this endeavor into real estate. We had no idea. We were just a couple of regular Joes. And we bought a 2-family house, renovated it and rented it. And we made every mistake in the book over the last 12 years. Some of those mistakes we made multiple times. We did not have mentorship. We didn't have the same kind of resources that you guys do now with channels like ours on YouTube. So we made all these struggles and all these mistakes and shared this experience. We share our success, but we also share our struggles so that you have a way to avoid and have an easier path going forward. They even see you in embarrassing situations. They see us in embarrassing situations. We see them in embarrassing situations, but you got to watch our stuff. We have a lot of content on YouTube. Please make it part of your daily routine by training your brain to think about real estate. So you see opportunities, you can navigate challenging situations that much more easily. All right, guys, I'm going to have to call it a day here on our YouTube channel broadcast. Thanks so much for being part of this. If you haven't already found us for TikTok, if you haven't already found us here, please find us. Two Guys Take on Real Estate on YouTube. Subscribe and ring the notifications bell so you don't miss out on all the great content we've got moving forward. And we really appreciate everybody there on our YouTube live stream. I keep looking over at the monitor. I should be looking here. Thank you, guys. I do appreciate being here and being part of this with you. I feel like so many of you guys are regulars, and I've gotten to know and recognize a lot of the names. So it's super cool to have you guys back here. Share, help our channel blow up so we can teach more people for free how to be successful in real estate. And you can accomplish a lot of that by treating other people with a lot of respect, treating them fairly, and doing a great service. So we'll make everybody hopefully a little bit stronger with some of our content. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you being here. Take care.